So here's the thing, good guitars are about as common as good guitar players, i.e. this stuff is quite rare. So I found this guitar, sometimes it's called Mr. Black, sometimes it's called Blackfish. I've had it since I'm 19, so well over 30 years. Found it in a junk shop and I bought it for 290 quid. It was in a right old state because someone had put a homemade brass nut in and it made the thing completely unplayable. So they'd given up on it and I found it. And also you got to remember that back then, this would be about 1986, these guitars were very out of fashion. We were all playing stuff like this. It was all about the Floyd Rose and the whooping and the shredding. But never liked them. But I was always drawn to Les Paul's, this maybe second Little Angels album. And the reason was Peter Frampton album cover, Frampton Comes Alive. I just thought it looked cool. And I always wanted to pretend that I was in Thin Lizzy. And it had to be black. And there it was, I found it. I could pretend to be Brian Robertson on Live and Dangerous. So I got the guitar and then I pretty soon figured out I needed a new nut. So I put a graphite nut in. I didn't realise back then that that had a massive effect on the sound. It tightened the whole thing up. It sorted the intonation out and it gave a little bit of fastness to the guitar. And then I took all the volumes out because I've never used volumes on the guitar, but I do use the volume pot as a tone because as you go down from 10 to 8, all the hard top end goes. So my guitar sounds are all this, no channel switching, no effects loop, and I want the fastest and most direct possible route to those big power tubes where all those glorious harmonics are. So I don't use any kind of tone pots, and I want a single volume. It says tone on it, but it is actually a volume pot, 500k for those that are interested. But I find there's a lot of nuances in tone as you go up and down on the volume pot. And it just simplifies my thinking. The pickups going, I've changed over the years and I've ended up with bare knuckle pickups, Black Dog in the bridge and a Riff Raff in the front position. But my sound is always about sitting between keyboards, horns and two of the world's loudest and best rock drummers. So in amongst all that, I need a sound that's going to not only cut, but also cut by the time it comes out the PA or at the end of the day in the mix on the record. So that's quite hard to do. It's all about those mid-range frequencies. It's the Keith Richards thing, sitting between the hi-hat and the bass drum. That's what it's all about, and that's what this guitar does. In fact, you could plug it into anything and it's so big and fat, it's gonna survive and thrive. You know about it when you play this guitar. Now this guitar is not easy to play, it's a right fight. Sometimes I've given it to other guitar players and they've just handed me straight back with a look of disgust. But I think it's a good thing if you are fighting a guitar because it stops you playing stupid stuff that you probably shouldn't, you know. Every time I do a gig and watch a festival, I watch a lot of rock bands, I always think play less notes. It's hard to play more notes on this guitar. The reason is the action is really high, the frets are really, really big. It's kind of banana shaped because the truss rod's fairly loose. So it's low down here and about 3mm at the 12th fret. And then the big question that people ask me is, why is it all scratched up like this? Well, it was stupid at the time. I didn't realise what I had with this guitar. Some people have described it as a Bart Simpson guitar because the Eat My Dust thing, you know, what's going on there. But we just did it one day. It was me and the artist Charlie Cutforth. Charlie used to do all our logos and stuff. And we just sat there, the paint was flaking off and the thing was only about 15 years old at the time. So I'd be about 19. And the guitar paint work, because it's on thin, old guitars have thinner types of finish, which is great for the way it sounds, and it starts to flake off. And I do feel the less finish you've got on the guitar, the more tone you're going to get out of it, the more acoustic properties are going to be allowed to come out of the guitar. But we just started scratching it, and Charlie got hold of it, and he scratched this into the guitar one day. and people just seemed to like it. So my thought was we'd just scratch the whole lot off at some point. But it's stayed on for 30 years, and people have got to know this guitar, and it's been on its travels. In mid-90s, I got fed up of playing. I got rid of all my guitars, and I sold this to a young guitar player called Chris Leonard. And he was a student at the time, or he'd just graduated. He didn't have much money, but he had got a very cool gig. He was playing guitar for Busted, and while they were prancing around at the front of the stage, he was at the back doing the proper guitar stuff. He didn't really have a pro guitar, and I said, well, you can have this for 300 quid. And at the time, these guitars were suddenly very fashionable, so this would be worth a few grand then. 1978, Les Paul Custom with a bit of history. Anyway, I got really told off later that day by his mum, who rang my house to tell me off for selling him an old guitar. So he went off round the whole world, because not only did he play for Busted, he then joined a band called Son of Dork, which was a kind of offshoot of that Busted McFly scene. They went round the place, made a ton of videos, which led to a load of confused rock fans, Little Angels era, asking me what was going on. Why had this guitar suddenly become a pop punk guitar? So then he got sat in its case and retired a bit as Chris went on to do amazing stuff. He wrote a lot of songs for Ed Sheeran. He's a professional songwriter these days. And he rang me up one day to say that a collector had offered him 6,000 quid for this guitar. And Little Angels had just started talking about getting back together. And I was struggling because I just couldn't find a guitar that did what this one does. It does a particular thing that I haven't found in any other Les Paul. It's got excitement, it's got fizz, it's got weight, it's got dynamics. And I used to think, it's not a great sound, it's just aggressive. But actually, it is a great sound, it's just a unique sound. It's not what you expect from a Les Paul. It's something different, you know. So I was really struggling to find myself, and the minute this came out of the case, it was in a right state. This bit of the binding had gone, we had to replace it. You know, I replaced the electrics, they were all knackered. So it needed a bit of attention, but fundamentally it was still there. And it gave me my mojo back, and also it was very interesting coming back to playing an old friend like this. It allowed me to redefine my own style. And for the first time, I chilled out. I'd been hanging with people like Guthrie Govan, and when you do that, you realise you don't really need to compete on any kind of technical basis. And this was like, it allowed me to find myself. After a long layoff of playing guitar, I thought, I'm going to be myself, and I'm almost going to exaggerate that. So if I do a certain thing, if I've got a big vibrato, I'm going to do more big vibrato. If I'm going to be sparing with my note choice, I'm going to play less notes. If I hit the thing hard, I'm going to hit it harder. So or if I have dynamics, I'm going to have more dynamics. So I start worrying about what I couldn't do and made the most of what I could. And I think if I ever lost this guitar, I would probably stop playing, because it kind of starts and ends with this one. I should probably think of a name for it, really. Bruce's stories have been brought to you by Ernie Ball Strings, and I use Ernie Ball Strings, and I've done for ages, not because they're cool guys. They are cool guys, they're brilliant, they're great supporters and great friends at WaterBear, but I've used them for years because they're better, they're the best strings for me because of the mid-range. They stay in tune great, and they've got a warmth to them which works, and it's all about that 800k mid-range. Sometimes I put the Dario strings on if I want more brightness, but it's very, very rare. I love these ones, the Old Faithful. So thank you, Ernie Ball, and they've been incredibly generous with WaterBear students, supplying free strings, mugs. Ernie Ball, beer glasses and all sorts of stuff, string cleaners, you name it. But it's all about the strings, and I love them. So you're probably wondering how much I had to buy this back from Chris. Well, I said to him, dude, you've got 6,000 quid from the collector. I'm not going to pay you that. So we met in the middle and I gave him 3. So I paid 3 grand to get it back, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I'd have paid a lot more, but don't tell him.